it's the same thing. I've come in before, not done the radio and done the nightly news and done a lot better jobs because I've not already, fired my my adrenaline and exhausted the glucose in my little electrochemical computer called my brain. But point is that all of you are leaders too. You just got to start fighting and you will get better. I assure you the first time you go in and take a jiu-jitsu class, you're not going to be very good at it. Or the first time you go take a needlework class, you're not going to be very good at it. I assure you the first time you go shoot a gun, you won't be probably that good at it. But you will get good at it. Everything is done by increment. Tyranny and evil dominates by increment. Good will reverse things by increment. And he goes over the numbers. According to U.S. government statistics, you are 6,200 times more likely to be killed by your doctor than by a homicidal shooter. This is the topic of a new video that's just been released, and we've got it up at Infowars.com right now with all the numbers. Very powerful info. Another lifeguard's gotten in trouble. You heard about the one that they said, well, if somebody's drowning right past this line that isn't our property, you can't save them. Really, I checked the state law in that state. They have a good Samaritan law there, too. It's actually illegal not to help somebody if you think you can. In that state, it is right here where I live. But in Vancouver, Washington, a swimmer saved a 12-year-old who was caught in currents, took him to the hospital, and they've charged him for the hospital visit now. Got to punish people for taking action. The globalists don't want that. All right, big news straight ahead on Facebook, ripping you off, and World War III. Alex Jones here with a... All right, folks, I'm Alex Jones. We are back live. You can find our Facebook and our Twitter and all the rest of it at Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com. Links right there. Speaking of Facebook, which we use to get the word out, their stock's fallen by 50% for several months before. We're on record with guests saying it was a pump and dump of the biggest proportion ever, with all the big globalist and Bilderberg Group members involved. That's why in Switzerland, a year and 3 months ago, at the last Bilderberg, before the one in Virginia a few months ago, it was Facebook people there with the head of the NSA. They use it as a giant spying operation. They admit that. And they sell your data. The White House is now being given all of your personal info to use against you. That's in the news today. I got a whole bunch of Facebook news. It's all up at Infowars.com. Links to it. They're very loving people. The creator of it calls you dumb effers. He said, our customers trust us. They're dumb effers. Very nice people. Very, very nice people. New Facebook tool may turn friends into enemies for the Democratic cause. And it's Fox News. And they go on and report on the fact that they're just giving 90 million users data to the White House. And the White House has bragged about that. Continuing, House urges Obama to fight UN web regulation. I love this. They're like, oh, the Pentagon just wants to take over the web and censor people and put control hubs in. That's what the House that's moderate wants. Oh, but they're fighting the UN taking it over and doing the exact same thing. And it's all two different hands of the same system that does the exact same thing. That's why they're reporting in CNET News that the censorship that the Pentagon wants of the web, the Pentagon is already over the web illegally here. Again, not our Pentagon. It works for the bankers at the top. You have to understand, our country's been captured, folks. And so the average military person's a good person on average, but not the leadership. The leadership's globalist. They go into Congress and tell them that the UN is their boss. I mean, you've seen those videos. You've heard it. I mean, we're now deep into this because the globalists transferred the power to the UN because they control it. So it's not like it's taken us over. The bankers took us over and created this new illegitimate group to officially transfer the power to. You understand that? It'd be like a bad loan officer at a house sale, and then they really sit there and have you sign documents, you don't pay attention, and then they give it to their wife. You're like, but I was buying the house, I just paid for it. They go, no, you agreed to give it to my wife. We're like, oh, your wife took over. No, the guy in the room took over, okay? So that's what's happening here. It's important to understand this. It's not let's get out of the UN. It's let's get the bankers out who hijacked this country through fraud. House urges Obama to fight UN web regulation. The House unanimously approved a resolution on Thursday urging the Obama administration to fight efforts to give the United Nations agency more control over the Internet. Proposals to give the UN's International Telecommunications Union more control over the government and governance of the Internet could come up in a conference in Dubai in December. The move is reportedly backed by China, Russia, Brazil, India, and other UN members, who themselves the global bankers have allied with. See, See, the bankers are all playing nations off against each other and promising them, if they sign on to the exact same proposal, that they'll get the power. But it's the same proposal. Even CNET News breaks this down. What they're calling for is what the Pentagon's calling for, and it's what England's calling for. And see, that creates a global web the bankers control, with all the nations clamoring to the globalist and the UN to be stakeholders in a game that's controlled. And again, it's not that the governments aren't sophisticated to understand this. They're all infiltrated by globalists. It's just when the globalists get a country that's uppity like Russia or something, that has its own crime syndicate that doesn't want to play ball with the bankers, then they'll use other countries against it, and they'll gang them up. But anytime any country gets strong, the globalists bring it down. That's why, while they're debilitating the rest of the world economy, they're busy really making sure the U.S. economy gets screwed up and that the family's screwed up and that everything falls apart. Because if we're a bunch of mindless, drugged-out jellyfish, we're easy to control. So it continues. I've got a bunch of financial news that I want to go over. I'll do that, though, after the break because it's a big stack. And then also the huge stack on Iran, Syria, World War III, Ahmadinejad saying wipe out the Zionist government, which is inflammatory. But then the media spins it. He says blow up Israel. That's how they translate it. That's not what he said. And I'm not defending him. It's just that there's lies there. Just like the West is showing al-Qaeda atrocities and saying Assad did it and putting out fake Photoshop photos, which they admit, and doing fake CNN broadcasts. It's just they're all bad. It's just Iran isn't conquering us and isn't in control of the UN and our military and our bank accounts and our police. That's why the immediate enemy is the globalist, okay? If Iran was a real threat and did something, nuke their military bases, it's far more sophisticated than that. So we're going to break all that down coming up. Also, there's an attempt to censor Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, and it's being done by a robot. It's not being done by a human. I'll explain it. The United States and our republic, our Constitution, is public enemy #1 to the globalist. Every major TV show, drama, CNN, badmouths our founding fathers, badmouths our freedom, our private property, our families. These people want us under their control. They want us dumbed down. They're ruthless. And it's time to wake up to the fact that we're under attack and to do something about it. And not just lay here and take it. That's right. The trouble is just beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me hit on this first right now. We even have some of the music here. And I would imagine that even the makers of this is the best plug they've ever gotten, Biotronic Project. This is the type of stuff that's happening constantly, and it's robots. And the reason I talk about this is it's a window into our future where machines run our lives that are programmed by globalists. You saw 6 months ago or less when all my videos on the web where Joe Rogan had been interviewed by me over the years in studio, going back like a decade, people had uploaded them from other sources and places, were banned or erased or had Joe Rogan monetization ads placed on them. And that was because the computer bot for Bent Pixel, a company, had gone out and said that his voice was copyrighted, and but specifically from live performances of his comedy, because people were taping his comedy and then ruining it for the rest of the people who hadn't seen it yet. So that's fine. Joe's my friend, great guy, host of UFC, TV host. I mean, everybody knows who he is. And I had to get Joe on the line to get a hold of the company. I couldn't get a response from the company at first. And then once the company got involved, they said, yeah, we're not going to do this with YouTube anymore because they are blocking and erasing everything and taking people's channels down. We apologize. Well, now with Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, been out since 2007. What is that, 5 years? And the film, it has been seen tens of millions of times online for free. And one of the versions has had like 3 million views. It's changed the channel, or 2.5 million views to be technical, 2,565,244. He's got a lot of our stuff posted on there. He's got this version of Fall of the Republic, 3.6 million. Rise of the Police State, 1.527 million. There's hundreds of channels that haven't mirrored with their millions of views. Invisible Empire, 3.4 mil. Obama Deception, 10.916 mil. 10,916,472. That just goes on and on. Secrets of the Universe. You know, all of these. 455,000 views. That's just a copy of one of our videos. It's all right there. And they put a block on the channel, and he's been given notice. They're monetizing it. And at any time, they could take the channel down. With the Obama deception, everything else on it, and the hundreds of millions of views this channel has had. This is another channel, not our channel, that we've authorized to post our stuff. Everybody's authorized. Except lawyers explained to me over a decade ago, they go, you can't not have it copyrighted, though. You have to say for non-commercial, non-profit reasons. I have to keep that little caveat in there. And it says that at the end of the films because people will go take your film and go, well, then I copyright it. And even though they can't win in court, they just do it. And so now this whole channel is in danger. Do we have one of their songs queued up? Because Biotronic Project, that by the way has no reviews on their Google site where they're selling it, they have gone through a record company who now says that my voice is owned by them. And see, this is what the globalists have bragged. They've got viruses. They call them viruses. It's just an order that goes out on platforms that will destroy and erase my voice, your voice, George Washington's photo, whatever it is they want destroyed. They can just memory hole it. And they've caught the big book publishers, digital book publishers. It's not that a digital book's bad. It's great, except it's got back doors built in where they rig it to bankrupt the physical book market, where they go in and are now changing famous books like 1984 and Brave New World and making it more positive. They've been caught doing that. They've been caught erasing those off people's books, even though they were paid for. Kindle and others. This is what the globalists said 20 plus years ago at MIT, that it allows them, once everything's digitized, to erase everything. So folks, you better have physical backups. You better create a market and save old VCRs and print machines and DVDs and Blu-rays. And more, this is a transition period where we're able to reach people because they're in the web transition where it's still somewhat free. But soon, it will be a hindrance the way the web is set up. And no one is immune from this, except someone like Matt Drudge. And he's still not immune, but he's very resistant to it, because I've analyzed it. A giant mega site around from the beginning of the start of the web that isn't based on search engines, that isn't based on referrals off stories, because he doesn't write very many stories, that is just link-based, going in to see what he thinks is interesting and the two guys that work with him think is interesting. You know, their hand on the pulse. It's not they're telling you what's interesting. They have a gut feeling for what's interesting. But I don't want to go into an hour-long diatribe about this, because I could spend 10 hours discussing it. The point here is that sites that are based on search engine type stuff like Infowars.com, Prisonplanet.com, we're also referral based because we had talk radio and other systems to push people to it. But still, them changing their algorithm and a lot of things has attempted to cripple us. But our ascension blast rate, acceleration rate punched through those attempts the last few years, and they didn't stop us. That's why my wife and people were like, you're going to spend every dime we've got going to the next level to expand our media operation. And I said, well, I've got to do that if we're even going to survive, because we've got to punch through all these censorship and algorithm techniques to get outside the gravitational pull of the restrictions. That way we can blast them from orbit, to use that analogy, okay? And we've been able to do that, and we've launched other salvos into orbit. By the way, the Pentagon uses terms like that as well. Like the state has a gravitational pull. Tyranny has a gravitational pull.